Athan has been snubbed from the combine invite. And to me, that is some bogus because I looked through the list, I went through everyone's numbers, and he basically objectively had a better season than 3 players. And he, for namesake 6, but 3 of the 6, I'll say, their name gets them in, their program gets them in. And I can't complain with that too much because they had really good 2024s and then fell off a bit. But overall, I understand why they were there. But to me, he had a better season than Jalen Daniels out of Kansas with the same record in a tougher conference, by the way. He had a way better season than Talon Green out of Arkansas. And by the way, they finished 2-10, 0-8 in the SEC. Better statistical season than FCS quarterback Cole Payton, though I understand they were 12-1, but they still missed out on the championship. And players he was better than that got in for namesake value. And I understand getting the invite, though I think Athan worked harder and had a better year this year, but I can't debate because of their names alone, and that is Drew Aller. Obviously, I hope he recovers well and has a solid NFL career. Cade Klubnik for previous seasons at Clemson, and Garrett Nussmeier, who he kind of has the LSU tax. He had a good 2024, but overall, that's 6 players that Athan, you can say, had a better case than. Obviously, the last 3 I named, they were going to get in no matter what, unfortunately, for, Athan, but the first 3 I named, Cole Payton, Jalen Daniels, and Talon Green, I think Athan had a way better season than all 3 of them.
Easily, he had a better season than Garrett Nussmeier. Easily had a better season than Aller, even before Aller ended up getting hurt. And I'm just genuinely surprised that he was not on this list, but Jalen Daniels was. And Jalen Daniels had a decent second half stretch of the season, but throughout the first half of the year, he was rough. He only had really one good game and that was against NEC team Wagner. Outside of that, he lost the next 3 to 4 games. And now Athan got snubbed, primarily just the FCS guy getting in before Athan got in really made no sense to me, just due to what the numbers that he had. Yeah, the numbers that Athan was able to have in one of the best conferences in college football in the Big Ten is miles ahead of what Cole Payton was able to do. And it just makes me wonder why Athan was just getting snubbed. Hopefully, I know Rutgers is either doing their pro day soon, because teams do their pro days right after the combine. And I just hope Athan's able to prove a lot of people wrong. But I just wanted to hear, Adam, who were some QBs that caught your eye that Athan got snubbed because of?
Well, and I certainly appreciate that, that we say that he got snubbed. But I don't think, Gabe, you're talking about the real, more important snub that happened regarding Athan. And that concerns this show. I believe that he was invited on this show and we got snubbed. Is that correct? Did I hear correctly?
Possible. It's pending, I'll say.
Athan, we love you and wish you the best. But, get around to coming on the show. We'd love to interview you. Here's what I think, guys. I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I thought he had a great year. I thought he was a fantastic teammate. I thought he was very resilient. He had a great game against Penn State, and he really improved throughout the year. No question about his toughness, his grit, the intangibles. I think that they just don't think he's good enough. That's my take. I think it's that simple. The scouts do not think he is good enough, and I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think that he will get his chance as an undrafted free agent, likely, or a late rounder. And when he gets his chance, he's going to have the opportunity to prove him wrong.
Adam, you have a peanut gallery going at you in the comments, by the way.
Yeah, you know what? That's just jealousy. It's just jealousy. You don't have my hair, and you're not as articulate. So what can I say? No, I like Ben and Sam. They're great, and I like Ben and whatever. But my point being this. He's going to have an opportunity to do that, but I do think that his likely trajectory, if he's in the NFL, is as a backup.
It's just that he statistically had better years, played in a tougher conference, and he was the most attentive in John Gruden's QB camp. He was the only one taking notes that got invited. It was very impressive how dedicated he was.
Yeah, and as we've seen, the QB camp for John Gruden has shown some alumni so far. Jackson Dart was a member of that last year, and he got invited to the combine. So I'm just How come Athan's not getting the same sort of respect that he deserves to get based off of what people have saw on film?
I'll
And
tell you what, no signature win is the reason.
Here's the
If
thing. I think
if
when
we
it comes
won,
to
but why is a win being a QB stat in a combine?
I agree, and the fact that Taylon Green went Arkansas went 2-10. I'm just saying that's the only thing I can argue is if we beat Penn State, if we beat Iowa, if we beat Minnesota, like one of those three, let alone two of them, maybe that would have been the difference. But I don't think that I still think he should have been invited. When you look at Cole Payton, he has less passing yards, less touchdowns, has a higher completion percentage, 72%, very impressive. When you look at Taylon Green, he has obviously the worst record, less passing yards, less touchdowns, more interceptions, worse rating. Like, to me, that is the obvious one. Taylon Green, he had a solid year for a
The
program.
one that just catches me off my eyes is that you didn't even mention it either, was how Joe.
Yeah, I know
I
that.
know.
That last name is a
I
little.
know. Joe Fano.
Uh-huh.
He played at a UConn squad while having, albeit 300 more passing yards and 8 more touchdowns and 6 less interceptions. He still played in more of a easier schedule compared to what Athan did, and he was still similar numbers in just terms of passing yards. So that's why I'm just also surprised how a UConn guy was able to get in outside of a Rutgers guy. And if you keep looking at the numbers, it just shows how certain players, I truly believe Garrett Nussmeier only gets into this combine because he's at LSU. There's no way a guy who threw for under 2,000 yards and got benched at the end of the season deserves a combine invite.
Well, I just think that Nussmeier and Klubnik only got in because of 2024. I think their 2024 years were impressive enough that they can have either.
I truly believe that as well as for Haynes King. Haynes King got in for the same reason.
Haynes King, I mean, Georgia Tech did have a good year this year.
Well, look, when it comes to the combine, like I said, I don't think that they think he's good enough. And I think with respect to the combine, they're looking at objective measurable factors. They're looking at arm strength. They're looking at accuracy. They're looking at how he throws the ball when the play breaks down, his ability to throw the ball into tight windows, his mobility. And I think on the objective measurables, he's on the border. So I could see why he would and would not get an invite. I mean, it could go either way. What Ethan has going for him is the intangibles. His grit, his teammate, he's smart. That's what his best selling point is to the NFL.
I think half of the points you mentioned, though, are things that you would figure out at the combine.
Especially the grit and things like that. You know that they interview players at the combine as well. This is the best time for executives to even talk to players. A lot of the people that they send to the American Bowl games, the one that Athan just competed in alongside one of the receivers from Rutgers, typically they only bring scouts there. For the combine, they have people and executives from each team, GMs from each team talk to the players. So that's stuff that Athan could have put on to a higher level and just more notoriety if he even got invited.
You also have to look, how did he perform against Ohio State? How did he perform against Illinois? How did he perform against Oregon? There is an argument to be made that he's just not on the same level as Nussmeier. I hate to say it, even though the stats don't show it, but the measurables do. Like I said, Athan, yes, he's a very good quarterback, but is he NFL caliber? I'm not sure. But I do know that he has the intangibles, his intelligence, his ability, his grit, his heart, his toughness. But the question is going to be, does he have the skill set to be able to succeed as a backup in the NFL? And I think the question is, we're not sure yet, but I think it's probably, I would put it at about 40% he doesn't get drafted. I'm sorry, 60% he doesn't get drafted. 40% he does. I just think he's got a way to go to prove himself, and he'll have that opportunity as a UDFA.
I think it's a little more than 60, unfortunately, because it's almost parallel that you get an invite to the combine and you have a chance to be drafted. And I hope that the scouts are taking into account his heart, his work ethic. I saw this really stupid commercial, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to escape it. It's the Microsoft Copilot commercial with the guy using the AI model to determine who he should draft, and it's like this isn't really related, but like we're talking about the combine and pro day and stuff and the draft, and I really hope that people don't use stupid AI models. The guy literally says, narrow the search down to who has good leadership qualities.
That's not something you want to find with with Microsoft Copilot. No offense to Microsoft Copilot, you're not going to find that with them.
You're trying to you're trusting Copilot to tell you who has good leadership. Use your eyes.
I honestly believe the thing about that commercial that makes no sense to me is that if anybody from not even just a NFL staff, but on a college staff, did any form of scouting through AI, they would get fired immediately on the spot if a head coach or someone of a higher stature saw them using AI to recruit players.
And if you're a scout using AI, why do they need you when they can do that themselves? I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that was a stupid commercial.
They're using AI across all industries now because they're able to take advantage of the analytics aspect of it. Now, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I will say last night I was on Microsoft Copilot and I asked it, based on all the factors in my life, how long will I live? And it said 49 years old. And I just turned 50. So does this mean it's like those soccer games when you run out of time and you're on borrowed time? What does this mean?
No, there's good aspects of AI. Like medically, I'm a fan of that. It can help people like with ALS speak that can't speak and stuff like that. But for everyday jobs, man, it's just it's making us replaceable. Anyways, that's a whole other conversation.
I agree with you.
It's just using it for football recruiting is dumb. When the best way to recruit is just looking at film and bringing that back to what we mentioned about Athan. His film looks better than I would arguably say 10 quarterbacks on that list.
You're hired because they trust you to come to your own conclusions based on what you're seeing and hearing. Goodness. Anyways, back to Athan. If anyone who is a scout uses their eyeballs, their ears, their minds to scout Athan, they're going to say he's a good leader. He had a rough defense. And sure, he had a couple of bad games against some very notable opponents, but they were the top of the class in the Big Ten. Any quarterback would struggle against Ohio State besides in the playoffs, I guess, apparently, or if you're Fernando Mendoza. But, they were one of the best defenses of all time. Oregon is always a top defense. They're always a top program. And it's very rare that a player does well against Oregon. The only game I think Athan truly had an outlier, really bad game was against Illinois. Illinois was the second worst defense in the Big Ten last year in terms of points per game, if I remember correctly. And we were the first, but they still put up their 38 against us, and we only put up 19. So that was the one game. And guess what? After that, we put up 35 against Maryland, who offensively were inconsistent, but defensively, they were not that bad this year, and we still put up 35. And then Penn State, they're always a good defense, and we put up, 36 against them?
I was at that game. He had a great game against Penn State. But look, when you talk about Oregon was thoroughly and completely exposed against the Hoosiers. And I just think that there are some blemishes. When you look at the games, he hasn't played well. It's always been against stiffer competition. And I think that there's some questions about his arm strength. And I do understand why he's not invited to the combine. I just don't think they think he's good enough. And I think it's a question right now. And I'm being fair. It's a 50-50 shot. And I think that he's got to focus on pro day. And that's where he's going to show them.
If you don't want to say Jalen Daniels or Cole Payton, Adam, shouldn't he have gotten the invite over Taylon Green?
So I don't know enough about him to say either way. So I will trust your assessment.
I'll read you the statistics, and I'm not gonna sway the numbers. I'm just gonna read it from left to right for all the passing statistics this year. 198 of 326, 60.7 completion percentage, 2714 yards, 8.3 yards per attempt, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, long of 62, 143.2 rating, and all of those numbers, every single one of them is worse than Athan's, and they were 2-10.
I think they're looking beyond the stats. The stats don't tell you much. What they're looking, is what's his arm strength? What are his?
Yes. So let me look at his rushing. Maybe this guy
Look at
is.
his rushing, and just for I'll give the size of Taylor Green, the height.
Okay, he can run. He can run. But is the rushing enough for being outdone in every statistical passing category? I don't know.
I truly believe that's the same thing that got Haynes King, and Haynes King was top 10 in QB rushing touchdowns this season, and I think he was top 15 in QB rush yards this season as well, and that's why he got in. He threw for sub 3,000 yards for Georgia Tech, and my thing is, there's no excuse for why Athan is not in. You can't say it's a size thing because Diego Pavia is listed at 5'10", and he's invited to the combine. You can't say it's a number thing because Taylor Green, Garrett Nussmeier, Kay Klubnik, guys who honestly had higher expectations coming into the year than Athan Kaliakmanis,
Heisman expectations
completely just plummeted after week 4 and had arguably the worst seasons of their entire career. Garrett Nussmeier, arguably worst last 2 seasons of his entire career in just terms of LSU quarterback standards. But Athan Kaliakmanis had better numbers than them. So my genuine thing is, why not look at the best QBs? What did he show on film that would worry a lot of just NFL staff and just people that invite people to the combine? I just wonder from what we all saw, what did you see last year that might have worried staff or worried scouts, in your opinion?
Arm strength.
Really? Arm strength, I thought, was his strength. No pun intended.
I think he throws a great ball, but when I'm comparing him to NFL prospects, I think that's the number one reason.
I think I know we just praised – well, Donovan and I praised him. Adam, you gave fair constructive criticism. But I will say I think that his – inability to escape the pocket is a little worrisome, and the fact that he can't run. And just the fact, I think his previous mistakes, his first year at Rutgers and his years at Minnesota, are kind of overshadowing what a great year he had.
Well, I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to see what scouts say about his strengths and his weaknesses, and we'll find out for sure.
Yeah, because I'm just so surprised by it. Because primarily, if we're going to talk about his mobility, there's QBs on here that I'm seeing that had worse mobility. Garrett Nussmeier could not run in the pocket. I could outrun Garrett Nussmeier, and I'm currently right now at 250 pounds. So there's this thing that I'm just off about. I'm primarily just off about. Because if we're going to go off of arm strength, like what Adam is saying, I can show you a couple of clips right now where Athan was able to throw really good deep balls where they honestly could have been picked off if any other QB from this list threw them. There was balls that I saw him throw that Kay Klubnik did not throw this season. Balls that he threw that arguably Sawyer Robinson did not throw this season. A lot of Sawyer Robinson's stats this season with Baylor was due to a lot of plays made by wide receivers after the catch. So we're looking at something right now where a really decently good QB prospect, Athan Kaliakmanis, who played it at a very tough conference, and despite that, finished top 5 in yards in that conference. Surprisingly, just got the boot.
Yeah, it's just that when you compare him to like Sawyer Robertson, I can't do that because he had better numbers across the board besides interceptions, and Baylor probably had less offensive talent than us too, and he still had better numbers. That's why I can't – like, if you're going to be better than Athan significantly, whether it's as, being on a better team, having better numbers, one of those two, that has to be the reason. If you're worse than one of those by a fair amount and you're only comparatively better or worse in both categories overall, I can't see why you should get the invite over Athan. And I'm trying to be objectively fair here because I know to people on TikTok or people on Instagram that come across a Rutgers page, they're probably going to be quick to turn the other way when someone's saying a Rutgers quarterback should make the combine over a Baylor quarterback or a Georgia Tech quarterback or, even Kansas at this point. But definitely.
No, they didn't want to say that about Kansas.
They look at Clemson.
That's the thing as well. If you put Athan on those Clemson and LSU teams, they do. I truly believe LSU most likely finish off the year as a 10-win team if Athan's there with that type of talent that they had last season. You could arguably say the same thing about Clemson as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that people are going to say, what the hell is the Rutgers program doing, saying a Rutgers quarterback should have gotten in over Clemson and LSU? And that's why I'm trying to be fair, but it still looks like numbers-wise, 2 years ago they had the really good seasons, but last year they were no comparison to Athan.
Well,
oh no, Adam, get your point off. My bad.
I was just going to say, on the Draft Network, when they're talking about Athan, they talk about his strengths being he's a pocket climber, timing and rhythm passer, good touch passer, and a functional athlete. But the concerns are arm talent to push the ball down the field, poor ball placement and accuracy, and decision making under pressure.
I just think he improved at all of those things this year, though. Like the trajectory.
If we're talking about people who play under pressure and make stupid mistakes, that's once again just points my eye out to the bottom three of this class, where Taylor Green, Jalen Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on Drew Aller. And
I saw Drew Aller throw a Subway $5 footlong to a cornerback in Happy Valley week 4 with undefeated aspirations on the line against Oregon when they were up by 10.
Yeah, it's just that mistake that Athan had against Penn State, that was not circumstantially up there, but in terms of how bad it looked, it was up there.
I'm with you on Drew Aller. I do not think Drew Aller should be at the Combine. But my question for you guys is this. Let's assume Drew Aller was not at the Combine and the other quarterbacks you mentioned were not at the Combine either. Would you still think that Athan should be there?
Wait, say that again, Paulie?
If everyone that I think he should have gotten in over didn't get in, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, so let's say we're going to cut out Jalen Daniels, Nussmeier, Aller, and right now we're still having a list where K. Klubnik, Luke Altmaier, guy that outside of the head-to-head game that they played against, had an overall better season than
I give the edge. Position. I give the edge to Luke for the year just because of their record, and numbers-wise, it's very similar.
Would you still say that he's worth going in over Haynes King?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I wouldn't say
14 pass touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was more known for his running than his passing.
Georgia Tech isn't historic. They had a good year this year, but they're not historically on the level of a Clemson or Louisville or Miami when it comes to the ACC.
I think an argument can be made either way in favor of Athan or Haynes King. I think it's close. But my point is, I don't know if we'd be making the same argument if those players who you thought shouldn't be there, let's assume they weren't. Then I don't know if would you still be saying Athan should have been in it?
Honestly, they would have let him in regardless, because just due to how small the 2026 class is, and also with how a lot of those QBs are either transferring or returning to their schools,